How's it going, everybody? This is Cameron White with WhiteLightAstrology, giving you guys your weekly forecast of what the heck is going on in the universe. This week we got two big things and one kind of nice thing, if that makes sense. We have the full moon in Sagittarius this Tuesday. We have a grand water trine with Venus, Jupiter, and Neptune lasting for 3 days over this weekend. And we have Mars squaring Jupiter. That is probably, like, the full moon in Sag and the Mars square Jupiter is probably the two biggest deals. The Venus grand water trine really isn't that much of a big deal, but let's kind of go into it, let's dissect it and see what this week's going to be all about. Starting on Monday, we have the moon going to be in Scorpio at the last degrees. It's going to be opposing Mercury, which, as the moon's in Scorpio, and it just made its conjunction to Jupiter, you know, we're really taking in and processing all of the emotions that we have, if we believe them or not, if this is our truth, if this is real, if we want to act upon this, and all that kind of stuff. But as it opposes Mercury, while Mercury is in Taurus, Mercury is kind of like, hey, I want things to look a certain way. I want things to work, not only look, but work a certain way. And with the moon being in Scorpio, after it just left its conjunction with Jupiter and it's, you know, trine to Neptune and trine to Venus, it's kind of like, hey, you gotta have to let go of some certain things that you might have been holding on to in order to really get more and more clear on what that emotional truth is. Like, Monday is going to be really interesting because right after the moon opposes Mercury, moon is then going to go into Sagittarius, where the full moon is going to be beginning. So with the full moon in Sagittarius, it's going to be on Tuesday is when it's going to be exact, but as it begins and the moon goes into Sagittarius, this is really all about really that Jupiter and Scorpio stuff, because we're really looking at what are our beliefs, where are we going, what do we want to do, what do we want to think. You know, Sagittarius is it has a lot to do with, like, you know, philosophy, beliefs, spirituality, but what Sagittarius deals with is why. Sagittarius is why fire moves. Sagittarius is why are we shooting the arrow? Where are we going? Why are we going there? What is over there? And with this full moon in Sagittarius happening, I like that, I shouldn't say I like that this happens because I guess there's no other choice. Like, when we have the full moon in Sagittarius, it's always during Gemini season. And I think it's funny because with the sun being in Gemini, you know, the way that we're really radiating ourselves is really, like, you know, through that Mercury perspective of, you know, constant change, of looking in new directions, of understanding our environment and things like that. And then when we have the full moon in Sagittarius, it's kind of like we have all this new information, we got to take it somewhere. It's time to go. It's time to feel. It's time to really see what we believe about all of this stuff that we've learned inside of our, you know, environment. And as the moon goes into Sagittarius and leaves Scorpio, where it was really dissecting the, I don't want to say like the darker emotions, but more of the real reality type truths about what we're kind of feeling right now, especially regarding what we really value, and especially that Neptune and Pisces stuff of, man, what is anything and what is everything? So with the moon leaving Scorpio and going into Sagittarius, this is kind of taking what we've felt over this past weekend and trying to figure out, where are we directing it? Where do we want to go? What do we believe? What do we want? You know, Sagittarius has a lot of desire. It's a fire sign. It has Jupiter there being its ruling planet. It's very passionate. It's very bold. It's very big. It's very loud. It's very positive. And this full moon in Sagittarius is about, where do we want to take this? Where do we want to take things? Where do we want to believe? What do we believe? Because as we look to the condition of Jupiter, which is in Scorpio and it's retrograde, it's trining Neptune, it's trining Venus, there's a lot of emotions that take in place, there's a lot of things that are still confusing, but remember that Venus is in Cancer, and that we have to really focus on what do we value and what needs do we need to be taken care of. And as that's trining Jupiter and Scorpio, maybe we could alleviate some of that intense Jupiter and Scorpio energy. And as this full moon happens in Sagittarius, which is really triggering a lot of this Jupiter and Scorpio, really look at do you need? What are those truths, and what's stopping you from taking action on that? What's stopping you from believing that these things are real? What's stopping you from, you know, holding yourself back, really, is the best way to put it. And yeah, it's Gemini season. We're learning things are changing, we're going in many different directions. But with this full moon, really ask yourself, what direction are you taking yourself in, and what do you believe about that? And on Monday, Saturn will be at 7 degrees. Mars trines Mercury as well, which is finally nice because Mercury since April has just been beat the hell up. I mean, like, Mercury, it was like square Pluto, square Saturn, square Mars, and then it went back and did all of that again, and then it did it a third time, and then it conjuncted Uranus, and then it goes into Taurus, and now that Mars is finally starting to trine Mercury, while Mercury's at the last degrees of Taurus, this is really getting the footing really down for this Mars in Aquarius, where Mars in Aquarius is, all right, like, we got to take action, but it's got to be different. It's got to be bold. It's got to be something that we want. It's got to be something creative. And it can be really hard to take that action. And as it trines Mercury in Taurus, where it's easy for our mindsets to get very stubborn and locked into where we're at, don't be afraid to take that initiative and to take control over your decisions, your actions, and go, okay, where do I want to go? How do I want to do it? Because Mars in Aquarius really is like a natural artist. It is a natural leader. However, what happens with Mars in Aquarius is that it tends to confuse that. It tends to not recognize or acknowledge that leadership quality and that originality type, energy. However, with this trine to Mercury, we have this opportunity to really make it our idea to go, hey, this is what I'm good at, this is what I know, how can I apply this in a way that's really going to, step up my game as far as Mars being in Aquarius, of taking new actions, doing something different. And I mean, Mars is in shadow right now, so like, it's kind of like, it is sketchy, it is a little bit like confusing, but as Mars is in shadow and it's trining Mercury, don't be afraid to keep moving forward. Don't be afraid to try something different, to try something new, because Mars is going to go retrograde over this spot again. So it's not like, I'm not going to say like whatever you do right now isn't going to work out. That's not how astrology works. It's just that it's going to require a lot of work. So you really want to use this Mercury trine Mars to your advantage, where Mercury can get the ideas that it wants, can find the stability and find the foundation to really center itself and its ideas and what it wants to think and what it wants to know and what it wants to speak, and really solidify that in your actions. So then on Tuesday we have the full moon in Sag, and I think the biggest thing about this full moon in Sagittarius is that it's squaring Neptune, where Neptune in Pisces, it's like, deceitful and dualistic, and it's all about dreams and illusions and X, Y, and Z. At the end of the day, Neptune in Pisces is literally just like, let's make everything confusing. Let's make everything very, very weird, yet very, very nostalgic and, just crazy intuitive and imaginative and all of that stuff. And as this full moon happens, Neptune's going to be right in between it, where Neptune wants us to be confused. Neptune wants us to be deceived. But Neptune also wants us to feel like what dreams are really made of. Neptune wants us to experience like that Piscean energy in the most saturated way possible. It's kind of like if you've been on the internet for a while, you know about like deep fried memes. Like that's what I always think of when I think of like Neptune in Pisces. Just like everything is just so saturated that it's just a whole new image now. And with this full moon squaring it, Neptune in Pisces is like, hey, what are your dreams? What is this crazy stuff that you want to create? What are things that are going on inside your head that you can't even imagine in reality? What does your heart want? And as it squares this, you got to really ask yourself, what's in my head? What do I vision? Like Neptune and Pisces is a very big vision aspect, placement, I guess to say. What is your vision? What is the artistic, creative feeling that you get from seeing your vision and what you want to create and seeing where you want to go? What is that feeling? And now with Neptune and Pisces making us be like, I don't know which side to take, and then Sun and Gemini is going like, well, I don't know what side to take. There's so many sides. This full moon in Sagittarius is about go with what your heart wants. Go with what you believe. And don't be afraid to really acknowledge what you believe. Now, Mercury does enter Gemini right after the full moon in Sagittarius. So once Mercury goes to Gemini, we're going to have all of these options. We're going to have all these creative ideas to really understand what direction that we need to go in. We're going to have this opportunity to really think things in a really great way because Mercury rules Gemini. Mercury loves to be in Gemini, where Mercury can talk, and think and learn and, do this and just do that and be all over the place. So don't be afraid of not knowing how to handle your situation, because once Mercury goes into Gemini after the full moon in Sagittarius, just make the decision, go with where you want to, and everything will fall into place after that. Then Venus will oppose Pluto on Tuesday as well, where again, this is a very underlying theme. This isn't so much like Venus opposed Saturn was really like, okay, like what do we need to do? Where do we really need to focus on our needs? What kind of action do we really need to take on that? Whereas Venus opposed Pluto is, now that we're really starting to channel and value what our needs are, where we need nurturing and everything like that, now we get to really see the change in what that brings. Because Pluto, yes, it is more of that darker energy planet. It brings needed change is the best way to put it. That's what it is though. It brings needed change. It brings needed perspective. It brings forward this whole new energy. And as Venus opposes it, it's not like this huge underlying theme of everything, but it is very subtle, and you will start to see a lot of your own value about yourself and your own feelings and where you need to be taken care of. You're going to start to see that change, and you're going to start to see that value grow and grow and grow more, especially as it opposes Pluto, because in the face of Pluto, you've got to be willing to take it on. You've got to be willing to kind of like fight the fight. You have to be willing to, you know, not be so scared of Pluto's energy. You have to be able to face it and be one with it. And with Venus in Cancer, it can be hard because we're all a little bit sensitive right now. Don't be afraid to really face that fear and face that, you know, uncontrollably intuitive and emotional, you know, pitfall that you can fall yourself into. Don't be afraid to face that. Take it on, you know, like if it's things are going really hard for you and things do really kind of suck, face it. It's not about ignoring it, but really understand what what the universe is trying to show you. With Venus in Cancer, we've got to start valuing and putting our passion into what our needs are and where we need to be taken care of. We need to be nurtured. We're all little babies right now with Venus in Cancer. And as it opposes Pluto, you kind of have to face the darker, harsher realities of that. But this isn't going to be like a right-in-your-face thing. It's just going to be this underlying emotion that we're going to be having. So don't be afraid to face it. I mean, we have Jupiter on our side with this. We have Neptune on our side with this. This is going to be really nice, okay? So then on Wednesday, Moon trines Uranus. That's literally it. Like Wednesday is just Moon's trine Uranus as it's in Sagittarius. So it's just going to be like, whoa, like, okay, I understand. Like if you watch my Uranus and Taurus video, talked about how it's kind of like the icebergs are breaking. We got to jump from each one to each one. That's like Wednesday is a great day to be like, I got to go to this iceberg. It's time to jump over here and get yourself grounded. Like that's basically it. Then on Thursday, the moon will enter Capricorn. It will conjunct Saturn and oppose Venus. And this is when Venus starts to make its exact trine to Jupiter and Neptune and Jupiter and Venus and all three of them together. So as the moon conjuncts Saturn though, this is when it gets a little bit real because it's going to be right face to face with Venus. And Venus in Cancer is very sensitive. Like I said, we're all little babies right now. And with the moon being in Capricorn, where it's like we got to toughen up, we got to, you know, really restrict our emotions and everything like that. As Saturn is retrograde and the moon meets Saturn, you know, where do we limit ourselves with how we feel just for the need of efficiency or effectivity? Don't be afraid to really, like, you know, sometimes feeling all of your emotions, it doesn't work a lot of the times, but sometimes it is needed. And as the moon conjuncts Saturn, don't limit yourself to not letting yourself feel. I mean, Saturn's retrograde right now. Like, internalize all this, process all these emotions, and really accept what type of support that you need, or accept what type of stepping stones moving forward. How do you need to move forward in order to really take care of this nurturing child that you have inside of you? And as it opposes Venus, yes, it is going to be a little bit intense. Yes, it is going to be a little like hard is the best way to put it, but don't be afraid. This is really about going, hey, these are what my needs are, this is what I need to take care of, and this is what I got to do in order to do it. So don't be afraid to take that action step this week, guys. So yeah, Venus starts its 3-day water trine, where literally Thursday, Friday, Saturday, we're talking emotional roller coaster. And I'm not even emotional roller coaster. It's not like going up and down, but it's just going to be saturated with how we feel and saturated with change, saturated with the ebb and flow of the universe. And as Venus trines Jupiter and Jupiter's trying Neptune and Neptune is trying Venus, it all comes back down to basically Jupiter and Venus. We have these two benefics, we have these two amazing planets. They're in amazing harmony with each other, while Jupiter's in Scorpio saying like, yes, this is my truth, this is what's real, this is what's right, I understand it now. While Venus is in Cancer saying, I am valuing this emotional truth, I'm valuing what emotions I'm feeling, and it's time to start really utilizing that and taking action on that. That's what that's going to be about. So then Friday, moon conjuncts Pluto, and this is when Mars square Jupiter begins, and Mars also trines Mercury exactly. So with the moon conjuncting Pluto, like again, very underlying subtle themes of change and darkness, but it's kind of like the moon's in Capricorn, so it's kind of like easy to handle. But the big thing is Mars squares Jupiter. This is when it's going to get really hard, because Mars is at 5 degrees, Jupiter's at 15 degrees, and they just started their square. And it's not going to be exact, because while Jupiter is moving retrograde and Mars is moving forward, Mars is then going to go retrograde while Jupiter then moves forward, and it's going to be a really interesting kind of thing. However, this Mars square Jupiter, just for the moment, is going to be really difficult on having the confidence and having what you're going to think is, oh, I need all these things together in order to take the right action. I need to be able to do this and do that and all that kind of good stuff, and it's got to be right and it's got to look this way, and you're going to want to hold on to a certain image that you want, and it's just not going to work. With Mars square Jupiter, you have to be willing to get out of your comfort zone, and you have to be willing to let go of certain ideas that you want to hold on to that it just won't play out in this situation. But with Mars in Aquarius, we have this opportunity, this innate opportunity to be so creative about how we really go about this. And this could be really easy to isolate and alienate yourself from doing the things that you want to, or being afraid of the exposure and everything like that. But as it's squaring Jupiter, you know for a fact that that's not right. Like, Jupiter's in Scorpio. Like, we know what's right and we know what's wrong. We know what that underlying truth is. But as it squares Mars, it's going to be a little bit complicated for us to kind of figure out how exactly to go about this. While Mercury is in Gemini, and on that day, as Mars squares Jupiter, Mars is going to exactly trine Mercury. So again, we have a lot of ideas running through our heads. As it squares Jupiter, you have to take that leap of faith. You have to trust yourself. You have to trust the process. And you have to be willing to face change. Like, that's what really this is going to be about. Now, on Saturday, the moon will then go into Aquarius, Mercury will start at square with Neptune, and Mercury will square Uranus. The moon will square Uranus. And as the moon goes into Aquarius, this is where it's going to be kind of like weird over the weekend, where the moon being in Aquarius is just kind of like it's conjunct the south node. We're like, where are we going? What are we doing? You know, what am I really feeling? Where is this all really going to be? The biggest thing is, don't conform to a certain way to do things. Don't limit yourself to sticking to what works or what you know best. This is the best time to really get out of your comfort zone, really step into the face of change and say, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm willing to take it on. And you will find a creative outlet for this. Because with Mars conjunct the south node, it's not like we're not supposed to be going in that direction. It's kind of like that Aquarius direction is, we know how to use that. We know how to use that for ourselves. With the North Nodes in Leo, where we're really focusing on, it's about putting ourselves first and putting what we want first rather than everybody else. However, as this moon conjuncts Mars and goes through Aquarius, and then on Sunday, like, that's basically it. Besides Venus leaving its opposition to Saturn on Sunday, like, that's really it. The moon goes into Aquarius, squares Mars, conjuncts Mars, conjuncts the South Node. This is really about facing that fear, facing that reality, and being willing to get out of your comfort zone and do things differently in order to get these results that we're looking for. And it is going to cause some disruption. It's squaring Uranus. You know what I mean? Like, this is going to be uncomfortable, but the way to really face this is get creative with it. Don't worry about expectations or what things are supposed to look like. We're not in, it's, you know, Mars isn't in Capricorn anymore, and the moon will leave Capricorn and go into Aquarius. This is really about going, what can I do to really create a beneficial situation? How can I get creative? How can I look at this through I like to say a bird's eye view for Aquarius. And as we go into Monday, for next week, when the moon goes into Pisces and we got everything else going on, this is when it's going to make a little bit more sense. This is when it's going to be a little bit easier. It's going to be easier to trine, not trine, I was thinking of moon and Pisces trining Jupiter and Venus, but as the moon goes into Pisces and we really feel things out, this is when it's going to be easier to have more closure and have more meaning behind our actions. So during this weekend, don't get disheartened, don't get too frustrated, but really ask yourself the question, what do you believe? And that's what I got for you guys. So thank you guys so much for watching all my videos, liking, sharing, commenting, subscribing. Thank you for my patrons that are on my Patreon. If you guys haven't heard about that yet, check out my Patreon. I'm offering all exclusive content. I'm doing a video just for the full moon in Scorpio. I got my June monthly horoscope coming out, and I got 2 extra videos coming out all about the Mars retrograde and the Mars cycle, what to look for in transit as well as in a natal chart. And I'm also going to be talking about how to really confront change, since this is what we're really going to be going through for the next little while. So again, thank you guys so much for supporting me in everything that you guys do, and I'll be seeing you guys next week.